How you doing? It's the Butcher here, and today I'm going to go over all the new patch notes for patch 1.3 coming with Season 3, and it's actually quite hefty. So I'm going to go through it. I've actually read it through it once and kind of give you my thoughts on it. I'm trying to keep this as condensed as possible. It's probably going to run a bit long. I want to apologize for yesterday's video with the audio being messed up. I think I was able to fix it now, so the audio should be back to its normal quality, which I know is still not the best, but we're making do for now. So first things first, there's 3 new items introduced to the game, and that is, or I'm sorry, these are all the classes. There's more than 3 new items, excuse me. But one of them is the Pain Gorger's Gauntlets, and they're unique gloves. Damaging enemies with a cast non-basic skill marks them for 3 seconds. When a basic skill first hits a marked enemy, the basic skill's damage is echoed to all marked enemies, dealing 100-200% increased damage. This is interesting. It kind of goes with this next one here. I'll just kind of mention them together. This is the aspect of adaptability. That's a utility. When cast below 50% maximum resource, basic skills generate 3 of your primary resource once per cast. When cast at or above 50%, they do 40 to 80% more damage. So kind of interesting. It looks like they maybe want to try to push some basic skills a little bit. Really what I'm thinking, like Stormclaw, it's really the only one that comes to mind at the moment. We'll see, potentially with some different things. There's one Barbarian skill now, I can't remember the name of it. Is it Flurry, I believe it is called? No, that's the Rogue skill. Anyway, so it looks like they're trying to push some basic skills, which I don't think is a bad idea. I just don't really see with the other stuff in the patch notes what these are really going to be good for, maybe outside of like Stormclaw or something like that. Then there's just Juggernaut's aspect. So you gain 0.75 to 1.25 armor, but your evade has 100% increased cooldown. So the normal evade charge is 5 seconds. So your evade charge will now be 10 seconds. This could be good if you need a way to get more armor, especially if you're able to use boots that have the 4 evade charges. Shouldn't be that big of a deal with the increased cooldown. You should probably have an evade up pretty much at all times, give or take. But the way it works now with Disobedience, I know you have to actually build it up. You just don't get it right away. But there's also no downside to it, and you get up to it's 1.1 is what you get. So it's actually a little less, but it has no downside. And as long as you're hitting the armor cap, you're fine, which is around the low 1300s, give or take, somewhere in that ballpark for tier 100s. But for higher content, if they want to increase monster levels and we need more armor, this could become very important to pair even with Disobedience to get the proper amount of armor. So then we have some item updates here. The 2 uniques that they mentioned here are the Ring of Starless Skies. So one's basically getting a buff, one's getting a nerf. So the Starless Skies is getting a buff, and I actually think this is quite good. And what this is doing is previously it would decrease the cost of your core skill by 12% up to a maximum of 40%, and that would reset upon casting a non-core skill. And that was good for a couple builds. Like I was using it a bit on Bone Spear, because with the ring that would do the corpse tendrils and corpse explosions for you, you can kind of just spam it out there and it would cost you like nothing. So, but the thing it does now is spending resource reduces your cost and increases your damage by 10% for 3 seconds up to 40%. So that's quite a nice little buff. It was one of the weaker Ubers, so I actually like that buff. And it does come with good affix rolls on it. It's like core, crit, lucky hit, and something else that I can't remember. So it's actually quite good. So, or maybe critical strike damage too, or something like that. So this is actually quite good. And then the offensive aspect of the expectant damage bonus now has a 5-second duration to be used. I'm not really sure why that is under the Ring of Starless Skies. A little bit confused by that, but we'll have to see. So then the Heart of Selig got very popular in Season 2 with people making just fully immortal builds with it, specifically with Barbarian, something that could generate a lot of resource. So now all stats are increased to 2 times their normal value, which is pretty crazy. So I forget what it was, but 2 times that is pretty nuts for having that on an amulet. The core skill damage is now movement speed, because the core skill damage actually didn't make a lot of sense, because when you're using it, you wanted to keep your Fury up, and then when you use your core skill, or not your Fury, whatever your resource was, and then you're using your core skill, you're obviously decreasing that. So it didn't make the most sense in the world. Damage while healthy does make a ton of sense, because they're changing it from being a low life thing. And then the unique power has changed. Previously, you gained 30% maximum resource. And in addition, when you took damage, you would drain 3 of your resource for every 1% of life you would have lost. So basically, you can make yourself basically immortal. The new affix on there is gain 60 maximum resource. 75% of incoming damage drains 2 resource for every 1% of life you would have lost instead. So what they did is it doesn't fully take resource. You're still going to be taking 25% of damage, so you can't go fully immortal like you could before. Probably a good change for the health of the game. I think this is still going to be good on some builds. We'll have to play around with that. And then this is pretty huge. Overpower nerf here. So you used to gain 1%, or used to gain 2%, excuse me, for your life. You used to gain for your life and your fortify. For every point of life you had, and for every point of fortify you had, you gained overpower damage for your base, I should say. Oh, and it was So you gained 2% for the amount of fortify and the amount of life above your base life. So the more life you had, the better for overpower. They changed this number. They basically cut in half down to 1%. This is actually going to make a pretty big difference for overpower. I think it was probably needed. Overpower was definitely a bit too strong. And then we have the barb here. We have 2 new items. One of them is the Ring of the Ravenous. So this is for Rend. This is one of the things they mentioned up top they're trying to push. So Rend's duration is increased by 2 to 4 seconds. Damaging enemies with brawling skills applies 2 stacks of Rend's bleed. This effect can only occur once every 4 seconds per enemy. Okay. Then we have the aspect of Sundered Ground, offensive aspect. Every 25 seconds, upheaval is guaranteed to overpower and deal 10 to 20% increased damage. This timer is reduced by 4 seconds when upheaval overpowers a boss or an elite enemy. This is actually pretty good, and I can actually see upheaval being pretty good this season, honestly. And I think this would definitely be nice to go along with it. Skills, as we mentioned yesterday in the video, they're really pushing charge. So they increased the base damage by 900%. We kind of saw that with the video yesterday. I think they showed it pre-patch and it was doing like 1.2k, and then they showed it doing like 12,000 post-patch. So that kind of goes along with these numbers. Obviously the math doesn't work out one-to-one because there's other things involved. But enhanced charge, the terrain impact damage got increased. And then the power charge no longer requires a terrain impact to reduce the cooldown of charge. And now charging will also reduce the cooldown by 6 seconds. It's actually pretty important if you want to make a charge build so you have it up a lot. Leap damage is increased by 30%. Most people aren't really using Leap for the damage, but nice to have. Passive. So Brute Force, the overpowered damage was decreased from 15% to 8 per rank. So that's pretty substantial. Again, nerf to overpower. And then we have the bunch of the key passive here. So the Walking Arsenal, this is when you swap between all the weapons. The duration of each weapon bonus is increased from 8 to 10 seconds. Okay. Additional damage for having all bonuses increased from 15 to 20. Having all bonuses also now increase attack speed by 20%. Still don't think this is that great. Still don't really see people using this. Unconstrained, berserking damage bonus increased from 60 to 100. That's actually quite a big change, and especially with that one Paragon node. We could see people go to this. Gushing Wounds, bonus bleed amount increased from 115 to 140. Overpower explosion damage increased from 70 to 65. The big problem with this, which they didn't mention, is it says multiplicative, but this number is actually additive here, and it doesn't seem like they've changed that. Again, so I don't see Gushing Wounds really being that good. Obviously, maybe if there's like a Ren build or something, it could work, but then the weapon expertise leveling has been cut by 50%, which is nice because it's pretty annoying to get them up. But as far as the kind of key passive change, I still think people are going to rock for the most part. Maybe unless a Ren build, they'll probably use Gushing Wounds, but every other build is probably still going to rock with the what's it called? I can't think of the name of it. The one where you spend double the fury and you get like 1.3 times damage or whatever it is. Probably still gonna rock with that for most builds like Hoda, Upheaval, Whirlwind, everything like that. So then the Paragon, the Martial Glyph, it now reduces the cooldown of every non-shout skill by 4 seconds instead of every other shout skill. So probably gonna be very nice for charge builds, I would think. And Ren as well too, actually. And then item updates. So the resource aspect of Echoing Fury, which is pretty widely used, you now generate 6 to 10 Fury per second while active instead of 2 to 4. And this kind of goes along with they don't want people to be so reliant on shout skills, so you don't have to stack a bunch to gain a bunch of Fury. The aspect of Limitless Rage, damage bonus now has a 5-second duration to be used. I actually forget which one that is. I apologize. The Veteran's Brawler offensive aspect, reduced bonus damage per stack. And this is mainly because this had to do with brawler skills, which charge is. I'm guessing this had to go in line with the huge charge buff, so they had to kind of bring it back down to earth in other ways. It's again same thing with ancestral charge from 75 to 125 all the way down to 20 to 30. The Encroaching Wrath, reduced bonus weapon mastery damage again from 82 to 100 to 40 to 60. Damage bonus now has a 5-second duration to be used. This is probably to bring. So Ren's not super overpowered, I would guess. And then the Ring of Red Fear, that new ring that was added in Season 2, damage bonus now has a 5-second duration to be used. So you got to use it pretty quickly. So Druid, one of the most exciting things, we discussed these gloves yesterday, but these new unique gloves for Lightning Storm, well, they'll keep kind of dealing lightning all over and deal increased damage. Actually looks really cool. Actually a build I think I want to try this season. And then the aspect here, the utility aspect for rabies, which they also said they want to buff. When it affects an enemy, reduces cooldown by 0.3 to 0.6 seconds. This cooldown reduction is triple when infecting elites, which is pretty big. We have the enhanced rabies getting a buff from 30 to 60%. The lacerate, what's it called? I'm all over the place. The ultimate cooldown reduced from 45 to 35 seconds. Prime lacerate now heals you for 6% instead of 3. And then, 3% on regular, 6% on crits. Cataclysm, so they want people to use anything else besides the Grizzly Rage and the Petrify, the other two. Twister damage increased from 23 to 46, so doubled. And the lightning damage increased quite a bit as well, too, by 22%. And then Supreme Cataclysm, vulnerable duration increased from 3 to 6 seconds. So they're pushing some of the other ultimates there. As far as passives go, Mending just increased by 1% per rank. Thick Hide, the Fortify gained is bumped up to 10 per rank. Unrestrained, this has the control and pairing effects duration increase from 3 to 5 per rank, increased benefit, while over 50% reduced from triple to doubled, so kind of middle ground there. This was actually useful for when I was running like Tornado Druid. I didn't have a way to go Unstoppable, that was back in Season 1, so that could be quite useful. And then they buffed some of the shapeshifter things, gain some more Fortify, the Bestial Rampage, you get some more. You only have to be in it for 2 seconds instead of 2.5, and the attack speed bonus got bumped up to 30. The Spirit Boons, they showed this one yesterday, increasing the amount of thorns from the Pickle Skin. The Gift of the Stag doubled it from 10 to 20 Spirit. This is actually quite big. I know it's kind of additive, but they're changing the critical strike damage to this to be multiplicative, so you get a ton more additive damage with that. And then the Paragon, the Tectonic, Node, the bonus lucky hit chance increased from 15 to 20. Poise, barrier increased from 5% of maximum health to 15, so that is quite big. And the duration is increased from 4 to 6. And then the Wilds, the passive companion damage increased from 80 to 120. Honestly, it doesn't really make sense because they did nothing else to the pets. So that's what I have to say about that. So the aspect of the Blurred Beast. So this is when they said they were going to nerf, but what they basically did, instead of 70 to 100, they moved it down to 20 to 40, and it looks like it's going to keep the double dipping, but they just kind of cut it a little less than half. So kind of odd they didn't just leave it and fix the double dipping, because I think it was fine besides that. So maybe if we get another Tears of Blood type glyph, Poison Shred should be pretty strong, but this kind of kills it because you don't get the double dipping. Or you do get the double dipping, just at like half the amount, but it could, like at a high level, Tears of Blood type glyph could still be good. Aspect of the Metamorphic Stone is the one they put in last season for the boulder that spins around you. The cost will reduce from 50 to 40. Unsatiated, Spirit Generation and bonus damage increase from 20 to 30 to 30 to 40. And then Retaliation, this was the one based on your Fortify. This they actually reduced this to a max of 30% instead of 40. Not really sure why they did that. So sorry, I should have given my thoughts. So overall, for Barb, overpower's coming down. They're really pushing this charge. I don't really think what they did to the passives is going to change too much. And then I could see Ren potentially being viable too. Kind of just a quick overview of them. And then for the Druid, I actually think this Lightning build is going to be quite good, and I'm quite interested to try this out. And then the Rabies bonus is nice, but I don't think it's anything crazy. And I do like how they're making some of these other ultimates a little bit more useful. Maybe you'll end up throwing them in a build. The rest of this stuff isn't too much. The Spirit Boom boost are nice. And then, yeah, the way they did the aspect of the Bird Beast is kind of weird. I guess it was probably a coding issue that they couldn't, just get rid of the double dipping. But either way, they essentially kind of did it in a way by just decreasing it and basically making it the same as it was before. So now we get down to Necromancer. And Necromancer is pretty interesting because this is pretty much unanimously the weakest class last season. So we got a couple new items. We have the Mutilator Plate. So you were Bloodlance, and when Bloodlance would deal damage to you, it instead fortifies you for 1 to 2% of your max life and has a 5% chance to form a Blood Orb. Bloodlance deals 10 to 20% increase damage. So I'm actually not... They say plate. I wonder if this is a shield. It does not say. I actually didn't think about that. But seems like quite a good item. Could also be a chest piece potentially. But it actually seems like a very good item if you want to run a Bloodlance build. I still don't think it's going to be the strongest, but we'll have to see. And then we have the Shattered Spirits aspect. Casting Bone Spirit also launches 18 Bone Splinters in all directions, dealing 200 to 400 times multiplicative increased damage and generating 6 essence per enemy hit. This is going to be huge. It seems like they want to push Bone Spirit, so that's going to be absolutely massive. Iron Maiden got a slight bump. Horrid Iron Maiden also got a slight bump. Corpse Explosion actually got its lucky hit, pretty drastically reduced. The damage did go up, but then the Shadow one went down, so this seems like a pretty big hit to Infinimus builds. I'm not really sure how they did that. It wasn't like Infinimus was absolutely crazy, specifically the damage, but I don't know. And then Blight, damage over time increased from 80 to 95. It's kind of fine. They buff Sever a little bit with the initial damage and the return damage. Bone Spirit, damage is increased by 4% per essence spent. Casting Bone Spirit up from 3%, so they just bumped that up by 1, So like I said, the Bone Spirit is something they're pushing pretty hard with that. And then Dreadful Bone Spirit now restores 30% of your maximum essence instead of a flat 30%. It's actually a huge change for that, massive, because that'll keep that essence up, and the more essence you have, the more damage you do with it. So then we have the Occultates Decompose, however you say that. It was previously you and your minions dealt 10% multiplicative increased damage to enemies being decomposed. The new version is every 1.5 seconds. Decompose makes enemies vulnerable for 4 seconds. And that's kind of a whatever change. To be honest, I don't really know how useful that's going to be. Then we have the other Decompose here. It used to slow by 50, now it slows by 50. And if you channel Decompose for at least 1.5 seconds, you gain 30% movement speed for 5 seconds after ending the channel. That could be okay. And then finally down here, or actually we got a couple more to go, we have the change to Dreadful Blood Mist. Previously, Blood Mist fortifies you for 0.5% of your max life. Some hits an enemy. Now you gain 10% critical strike chance for 4 seconds after Blood Mist ends. Probably a buff. This 0.5 is like nothing. Bone Prism, friendly players and minions can now freely pass through Bone Prism walls. The functionality of Enhanced Bone Prism and Ghastly Bone Prism have been swapped. This just makes it easier to use. And then Enhanced Bone Prism, I don't know what's saying Prism before, it's Prison. Enemies inside of Bone Prison are vulnerable. Ghastly Bone Prison, if an enemy is trapped by Bone Prison, gain 25 essence, plus an additional 5 per enemy trapped. And then Dreadful down here, previously it would fortify you for 8% of your max life for each enemy trapped. Now it reduces your active cooldowns by 0.5 for each enemy trapped up to 3 seconds. Probably a good change there as well too. This used to display, or this didn't used to display what the bonus you're actually getting. So it's nice it does now. Most of them do that. It's just a nice quality of life change. So then we have the Golems here. When Golems finish casting their active abilities, they will first try to target a new close enemy before reverting to their previous target. Blood Golem and Iron Golem basic attacks now hit enemies in an area around the main target. The Bone Golem, the active ability now grants the Golem Thorns equal to 70% of your armor for the duration of the taunt. If you're running a Bones, I know some people like to do that's very niche, kind of like a Bone Minion Necro, so that's okay. Bone Mage, upgrade now fortifies based on your maximum life instead of base life. Nice change there. Skeletal Priest, healing increased from 25% to 40% over the 8-second duration. Again, pretty nice change. And then from the Paragon here, we have your minions, the Cult Leader. Previously, your minions dealt 15% increased damage for each minion type you have active. Now your minions deal 10% increased damage for each 20% of attack speed bonus they have. Probably a good change. And then your Golem, this is probably the biggest one, honestly. Additional bonus change from 25% health to 25% damage. Just weren't doing enough damage before. I still don't think minions are anywhere near where they need to be kind of viable. You could probably get away with using them, but they'll probably still be kind of bottom tier builds, which is really a shame. They just really haven't figured out a way to do anything with these minions. I don't get why they're not giving them more power. So now again, we have, like I said, Bone Spirit is really something they're pushing. I'm surprised they tried to push this instead of the minions. They must not be able to figure it out, honestly. But the updates to it, previously it dealt increased damage based on distance traveled up to 25%. Now Bone Spirit's critical strike chance is increased by up to 25%. Additive, your maximum essence is increased by 2 for each enemy hit for 15 seconds. So you can hit a ton of enemies. This could actually be quite good. Like I said, I could see Bone Spirit being good. It's just probably a little bit kind of clunky to use, honestly, though. Just a little bit odd, I think. Then we have the Torturous aspect. Previously, they would just give them a chance to be stunned when they're afflicted with Iron Maiden. Now it's also a Darkness skill and deals shadow damage. Enemies afflicted by Iron Maiden have a 25% chance to be stunned for 1 second when they deal direct damage. This is probably to go along with the Infinimus build, I would have to think. And then Rotting aspect, chance to spawn an additional corpse increased from 3060 from 3060 to 50 to 100. Pretty nice change there. And the Hulking aspect, chance to reduce active golems cooldown from 2.2 to 5%. Now to 4 to 10, quite a big boost there. Chance to spawn a corpse increased from 1 to 2.5 to 2 to 5. Again, I just don't think it's enough. So overall with the Necromancers, I don't think minion builds are going to be good. I think Bone Spirit is really what they're pushing, along with kind of Bone Prison as well too. I still see Necro being pretty weak, to be honest. I know some of the other classes are coming down to earth, but I just don't. Unless that Bone Spirit build is kind of crazy OP, don't really see it being very good. I'm very disappointed that not more was done to the minions. I still don't really see them being a very good build, unfortunately, because I think everyone would like some good minion builds in the game. Okay, so now we have the Rogue here. So our second to last class, we just have Sorcerer after this. So the new items added are the Beastfall Boots. So this is when you cast an ultimate skill, your next core skill consumes all of your energy and deals up to 1.5% increased damage per energy consumed. Using a cooldown restores 5 energy. Interesting. I'm not exactly sure what you would use this on, because I'm thinking people really don't use ultimate skills that much. There was with Flicker Step, you could do the Rain of Arrows build, but then you would have to drop Flicker Step by this. You have the Shadow Clone, which basically does nothing, and then you have Death Trap. I don't know. Doesn't seem very useful to me. This one's a bit more interesting, though. This is a new defensive aspect. Breaking Concealment grants you plus 10 to resistances, and more important, maximum resist to all elements for 4 seconds. Killing an elite reduces Concealment's cooldown by 6 to 10 seconds. So if you are using Concealment, this could be quite good. That plus 10 to max resist is actually going to be a massive damage reduction to elements. But have to see. It is kind of a bit niche, but I actually think this is pretty cool and kind of pushes people to use Concealment more, gives them more of an incentive to. Then down here for skills, Blade Shift had its damage and duration increased. Invigorating Strike, the vulnerable now applies when you were below 85% energy, up from 75%. So you used to have to be below 10 more percent. And then they made some changes to caltrops. So previously they would take 5% increased damage for each second they stand in your caltrops. Now they take 10%, which is pretty massive. It's still only increased by 5%. It's increased by 5% each second still, not 10%. But that is a nice change. It's just hard to fit caltrops into a lot of builds, unfortunately. Rain of Arrows, the cast time reduced by 15%. The first wave of arrows now hits closer to the player. I think that's a good change, but that's kind of, again, a niche build using the flicker step and stuff like that. The cold imbuement chill amount now increased by 5% per skill rank, up from 2.5. It's a good change, kind of pushing people away from poison, although I don't think it will. And then the blended, remove the crit requirement, increase the lucky hit chance from 20 to 35%. They're just pushing, more benefits to cold, although I still think poison is going to be the way to go. And I'll get into that later. I've decided, I think, what I'm going to start the season with, and it's going to be penetrating shot rapid fire build, and I actually made the guide already, so I'll have a full video on that coming up before season 3 starts. But anyway, mixed poison imbuement. This was actually a very good change, because previously poison imbued skills would have up to a 30% chance to apply double the amount of poisoning damage to them. And the problem with this is the other one, the blended, I believe it's called, if you crit, there was a 75, you could do 75% increased damage. So it was almost the same. This just had slightly more, but you would get it way less. So it didn't really make too much sense. Now I think it's better. It's a way to, if you don't want to run like bursting venoms, you can now have this lucky hit here. So poison abuse skills have up to a 30% chance to reduce poison abuse cooldown by 2 seconds. So I'm assuming this also applies to if you're running puncture with the pestilent points, where you're poisoning abuse your puncture every third cast. So that could be a way if you don't want to run bursting venoms. This could be a way to get that down. You just have to sacrifice some damage. Forceful arrow, vulnerable duration up to 5 seconds. Penetrating shot got some pretty nice buffs, and this is why I think I want to run this build. Along with a lot of the other stuff being brought down, I think this might be the season of Dot, kind of how we thought last season would be, but it really ended up being the season of Overpower. But with that coming down, crit already came down. Dot's kind of the only thing left untouched, but we'll see. Anyway, so the enhanced penetrating shot, it used to deal 10% increased damage per enemy it pierced, and now it has a 10% increased critical strike chance. Penetrating shot damages at least 3 enemies, gain 10% critical strike chance for 5 seconds. So you're getting a ton of crit chance with this. And then improved penetrating shot. It used to be if penetrating shot damages at least 3 enemies, your next penetrating shot has 20% increased crit strike chance. So now the penetrating shot deals an additional 10% damage per enemy it hits. So this is a pretty good buff, and it kind of switched it off here. They kind of switched them around, which made more sense than the way they had it before. So I think this is actually better, and I think penetrating shot is going to be quite good, especially combined with rapid fire. And I'll obviously get into that when I make my build guide. For the passive close quarter combat, this got a huge nerf. So it used to be 40% of your crowd control bonus all the way down to 10, and then the attack speed was increased slightly to 15. It's probably not going to be worth using now. The problem is with a lot of the key passives for Rogue, they're not that good. And just to give you a little hint, I think I'm going to actually be using Victimize for several reasons on my build, and you're going to see why. And I'm actually pretty excited to bring it to you guys. And then precision. So previously you would gain 4% critical strike damage per stack of precision, up to 20%. And then when you reach the max stacks, your next marksman skill is guaranteed to critically strike and deal 40% increased crit strike damage and consume all the stacks. Now each marksman skill cast grants 1 stack of precision or 2 for critically strikes. So when you reach 6 stacks, your next marksman core or ultimate skill. So this is not going to be, let's say you're using like puncture, it won't take that, which is very good. And it's guaranteed to critically strike and deal 50 times multiplicative, it looks like, increased critical strike damage, consuming all stacks of precision. The damage is further increased by an amount equal to 15% of your critical strike bonus. So this was something I was looking into, potentially using this and probably going with Cold Imbue. but just the way crit works now and just scaling it up later game, I'm just not so sure about it. We have Chilling Weight here, just really a bonus to, or a boost to how much slow you get from chilling enemies. Concussive previously was after knocking back or knocking down an enemy, you gain 4% critical strike chance against them. Now it's just 4 flat. And then in the Paragon, we have one change here to Liana's Instinct. When inner sight gauge, previously it's when the inner sight gauge became full, you gained 100% dodge for 1.5 seconds. Now it's when it becomes full, you gain 100% dodge for 2 seconds. And your next 3 core skills deal additional damage equal to 20% of your core skill damage bonus. Actually makes this quite a bit better. Just a tough sell to run inner sight over combo points, in my opinion. The way things are, even without the bug there for whatever it was, to Vault's Will. Okay, so this is some item updates. So we got a little nerf here to Blade Dancers. The orbiting blades can now hit an enemy 2 times instead of 3. So definitely not as good. And then we have the Twisting Blades Orbiter short around time dealing 20 to 30%. So this is actually of the Twisting Blades return damage per hit. So it took out the distance that had to return to get the max. So I guess it's more of a nerf. This is going to nerf it more than this is going to buff it, to be honest. So then we have the Stolen Vigor aspect. And this is actually, if you want to use Stolen Vigor, this is actually pretty nice. So now you can get a ton of healing from this. It's not only going to give you that healing. It says this number, but you actually can get up to it's like 1400 per second. But now you're also gaining 5% damage reduction for each stack, which is very nice. So I think you get 3 stacks, so you get 15% damage reduction. It's pretty nice. Icy Alchemist. So these are the two poison or the 2 shadow, things that are in the that are you're able to apply. Both of them basically the same thing. One with freeze or chill, and one with poison. So basically they changed the icy one. So now Shadow Imbue skills have a 75% chance to release an explosion that deals cold damage. Again, this number's not right to what we would actually get. The target surrounding enemies, chilling them by 25%. If they are chilled or frozen, increases damage by 100%. So pretty nice there if you want to run a kind of dual imbue setup with that. And then the toxic one here, Shadow Imbue skills have a 75% chance to create a toxic explosion that applies poison damage over 5 seconds to the target and surrounding enemies. If the enemy is already poisoned, increases damage by 100. So again, this one's pretty interesting too. The problem is you have to have Shadow Imbued skills. So then they also changed the 3 unique bows here. So Wind Force, they increased the lucky hit chance by 10%. And then for Sky Hunter, this is the one that changed the most. They the inherent affix changed from damage to distant enemies to critical strike damage, probably a good change. The crit strike affix value is increased by about 100%. It's not applied to the inherent crit strike damage affix. So that's the inherent is the thing at the top, or we say like vulnerable or distant or whatever it would be. And then effects updated to relax the changes to precision key passive. Previously, it was the first direct damage you deal to an enemy is guaranteed to critically strike if you have the maximum stacks. When cast, you gain 20 to 30 energy. This can only happen once per cast. New, the first direct damage you deal to an enemy is guaranteed to critically strike. When you consume precision, so I'm going to go over my words, casting a skill, that skill gains 10 to 30% increased critical strike damage. You gain 20 to 40. So pretty nice little buff there. This is probably the biggest one though. So Eagle Horn, this is the penetrating shot one. Like I said, penetrating shot is getting a nice little buff. So before, what would happen is you would need to hit at least 5 enemies with penetrating shot to cause your next cast to make them vulnerable for 3 seconds. Now, every cast makes enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds, so incredible way to keep up vulnerability. And every 4th cast bounces off walls and scenery. So this just had a straight chance of 30 to 80. Now it's every 4th cast will bounce off walls and scenery, and then deal on top of that 20 to 40% bonus damage, which is pretty big. So I think this is something I'm going to be using on mine. So as far as rogue goes, Definitely trying to go away from twisting blades. I think the range builds got better. We'll have to see how that plays out. And then finally, we have the sorcerer, the last build or last class in our patch notes here. So new items, we got 2 of them. We got the Starfall Coronet. This is what we looked at yesterday. This is the new helmet for the Meteor skill. And then we have the aspect of shredding blades. It's offensive aspect. Ice blades, chance to apply vulnerables increase by 20%, and the vulnerable duration increased to 4 seconds. Gain 15 to 25% multiplicative vulnerable damage. This could actually be quite good because they have to damage vulnerable enemies to reduce the cooldowns of other skills with one of the what's it called? It's like the enhanced or something like that. So that could actually be quite good. So ball lightning got hit, change its enhanced ball lightning changed to have its attack rate increase with attack speed up to 25%. So you can't just get like basically infinity of it now essentially. Mage's Blizzard condition to be cast over 50 mana has been removed. Kind of nice there. Lightning Spear. Critical Strike now apply vulnerable for 3 seconds. Kind of mentioned this before. I think I mentioned in the video. Another way for Sorks to apply vulnerability, which is pretty nice. On the Paragon, Searing Heat. Fix an issue where Critical Strike chance bonus was not properly applying. Crit Strike chance bonus increased from 10 to 12. Kind of whatever. Elemental Summoner. Conjuration damage bonus increased from 3 to 5 of the percent of total amount of bonus damage of fire, lightning, and cold. Pretty nice there as well too. They're trying to push some of these conjurations, so it makes sense. Burning Instinct. Amount of intelligence required to gain 1% bonus burning damage reduced from 75 to 25. We should see more fire, either fireball or meteor skills, especially with this. That's actually a pretty huge bump. And then item updates, just a couple. We have the offensive aspect of Shattered Stars. Meteorite damage has been changed to 20 to 30% of casted meteors damage. The Staff of Lam Isen, if that's how you say it, increased charge bolts chance to be attracted to enemies from 30 to 50 to 40 to 60. Don't think that changes too much with charge bolts. Don't think it'll be used too much. Ice Heart Bryus, sorry, I don't know how to pronounce a lot of this stuff. Chance to release a frost nova when enemies die increased from 11 to 20 to 21 to 30. So I don't think that'll be used very much at all. The rest of the stuff here, not too much that's actually going to affect actual gameplay. Just some stuff we got about, we kind of already knew this. So if you're doing tier 90 or above, you're guaranteed 925s. It was about the Helltide being up all the time, and then kind of UI, and then we have just a bunch of bug fixes, like the Bonebreaker didn't have an indicator, things like that. And that's about it. So that's all I want to go through. As far as my thoughts on kind of the patches, specifically the balancing changes, I think they're okay, quite frankly. I think I would like to see a little bit more. Seems like for kind of each class, they want to push like one viable build. Wish they would kind of push more, but we'll have to see how it all plays out in practice, how these things synergize, especially with the new bot or the new pet, whatever you want to call it. So for now, I think it's mediocre, but I'm also kind of on the side. I'll have to see how it all plays out. So it's been The Butcher. I know this has gone on for almost about 40 minutes, but I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. And that will be the build guide for when I'm going to start season 3 with. So it should be a good one. See ya.